you tried it and it failed, it's a learning tool. If you don't admit what could have been better, then you can't get better.
We've all seen them, those experiences that stop us in our tracks, the moments that flood our feeds, shift culture, and bring people together. I'm Aja Bradley-Kemp, and I've helped generate millions in revenue and billions of impressions by creating scroll-stopping moments for some of your favorite brands and celebrities. This is Making the Moment, the podcast that brings you the untold stories, unfiltered insights, and big ideas from the architects behind the moments that matter. In each episode, I'll show you how to design experiences that not only captivate audiences, but also drive tangible value for your organization. Whether you're looking to build buzz, boost loyalty, or drive revenue, I want to help you design customer experiences that truly make an impact. This is for the moment makers and the culture creators. Welcome to Making the Moment. Welcome to Making the Moment, the podcast where we tell the stories of the events that shape culture and spotlight the architects who make them happen. I'm your host, Aja Bradley-Kemp, and today we're speaking with a woman who has helped brands show up on the biggest stages on the planet, from the Super Bowl to the Olympics to taking over the Louvre with Post Malone. We're going to talk all things innovation and how to stay inspired when the pressure is sky high. Please welcome the incredible Kim Aimi. Welcome, Kim.
Hi, thanks for having me. So good to see you.
It's so great seeing you too, and so excited to chat and learn from you and hear all of your great experiences and insights that you're going to share with our audience. So I wanted to start because you have described yourself as a brand lover and problem solver and just overall a believer in the greater good. How did that shape your journey into experiential marketing, and where did that those values come from?
Funny because I was just reminded of it last week. I met up with a childhood friend. We had a bus stop on this major street, it's a little town called Lancaster in California. And every once in a while, the street would have to be closed down because we had to, or NASA space shuttle would be transported from kind of where it was being built, from construction to Edwards Air Force Base. And so
Wow.
it was cool because we didn't have to go to school so early that morning, but also it was like a big parade. And so the whole neighborhood was out there, and because you couldn't really get out of, you couldn't drive anywhere. Um, and so everyone's out there with their beach chairs, with their binoculars, with their cameras, and just waiting for this massive machine to go down the street. And it was a celebration, and it was fun, and it was in the newspapers. And when I think about how I grew up, like that's one of those big moments that really stays in my mind about big, bold experiences that also create community, right? And everybody was just in it together. There was joy, there was fun, there was pride, and just excellence around kind of the bigger picture about what we were doing, what we were building, and then this big machine going into space. Like, what is that? Especially back then when celebrities couldn't just pop up for fun. So that's one of the things when I go back, those unforgettable memories, those core moments, that's what resonates. That's what I love about experiential. So to me, it's all about bringing community, bringing big, bold ideas, and having everybody sort of forget everything else for a moment and just kind of enjoy what's in front of you.
Wow. And that's pretty amazing that it took you back to that. That was like a time where I feel like today when we think about impactful moments, it's things that we see on Instagram, on our social feeds, but it's not simple. It's pretty cool to have a rocket ship, going through your neighborhood. Like that's a momentous occasion. That's a moment. And so it really just kind of underscores, I guess, to like the reason why I do this and talk to people like you. It's just, there are these moments in time that shape, how we view the world and shape our
Mhm.
creativity. And you just never know where it's going to come from. And so, yeah, I think that's pretty cool
Yeah.
that you had those experiences as a child and
And it
how
wasn't
that
like
the
a,
foundation.
yeah. I think also what I love is it was very genuine. I'm trying not to say authentic. It's like those bingo buzzwords. But it wasn't a branded moment where NASA was trying to get you to buy swag,
Hmm.
or there were creators who were promoting themselves being at this event, right? Because it was so long ago, there was no such thing. There weren't even
Right.
iPhones. But it was just a raw face-to-face IRL
Mm.
moment. And I think that's what I love. Like it was surprising, right? Like there's so much, like you said, on Instagram or TikTok, or, your feed is full, as is mine, of everything that happened at Cannes, or Fanatics Fest. All these great things that are super fun and
Hmm.
definitely good for brands. But it's those other things that are like unexpected that I think are often more meaningful.
Yeah, I think that's the word too. It's meaningful and genuine. Um, yeah, another way of saying authentic without saying authentic. But it's true. It is what it is, right? So obviously, as a young child in elementary school, you weren't thinking about this big career in experiential. But so, how did you end up working in this industry? And is there, someone that mentored you or, inspired your early career?
So I have had a handful of really good mentors along the way. Um, I took just like a very traditional path, right? Because back then you went to college, you got a job, you buy the house, like, and it doesn't work that way nowadays. But back then, I did go to school and I got a marketing degree, and I thought about like maybe I'll do fashion merchandising or design. And I, as a hobby at home, I would cut up all my magazines and create different layouts. Again, we had no computers, there was no
Mm-hmm.
Canva or anything like that. So, very manual labor of love, like creating my own little books, my own Pinterest, so to speak. And then I took marketing classes and just realized like that's, I think, where everything comes together, where it's creative and it's brain and analysis and strategy. And when you can bring them together to work to help a brand make money, like
Mm,
that's what was cool to me. So I started through retail, but I ended up working for a division of Levi's,
mm,
and met just really, really smart people who were willing to take a chance on me. Um, and two things I learned from that very first job is one, when you graduate from college, you want to like have all the things and have the big title, and you feel like, oh, I've put in 6 months, I deserve a promotion, and like you want everything now instantly.
yeah.
And one, you're not ready for that, even though you think you
Mm,
are. And
mm,
two, like you got to pay your dues. You've
mm,
got to learn how to grind. You've got to learn how things work. And it doesn't mean you can't input your own ideas and thoughts about how to get things done, but you don't know everything. And there's a lot to learn from people who do, who have had experience. And then you take it and shape it the way you want. And so I wanted a marketing job at this company. They were starting building a new office in the Seattle area. And I wasn't qualified for the job, but they offered me an admin job. And they're like, you'll work for the marketing department, you'll get to learn, you'll get to know people. And so I took it and I did. I learned so much, and they learned
mm,
about me. And I was quickly promoted into like retail marketing ways, but it was all about communication. They would invite me to sit in meetings, which was great. Like that's how you learn.
mm-hmm.
they trusted me and increasingly gave me more things to work on. So I feel like I worked with three gyms there. So one was the head of sales, one was the head of marketing, and then one was in research. And so the two gyms, they were just great. I just respected them so much. I learned so much from them. Took the time to teach, which I think is so
Mm.
hard when you're so busy. You've got your own objectives and things that you need to get done. But taking the time to invest in younger people or people who are hungry to learn, I think that's what's really valuable. And so all that is a long way of saying through there, I got to work on trade shows,
Mm.
which is a type of experiential marketing. So I worked with in the retail marketing. There was a trade show called Magic in Vegas. I believe it still happens.
Mm-hmm.
And it's where deals are made, where you're showing your next season's line. And so I got to manage that with an agency. So create the space, pick out the clothes, like do all the things, and create a space for the sales team to make sales and meet with our customers. And that was my very, very first sort of like experiential um, project.
I think what you said about how you got into this industry is very interesting. It's a lesson for younger professionals that are watching this and listening to this, because although when you start out you have a clear vision of where you want to go, what you want to be doing, it's really important to have your vision but also to say yes to
Mm,
opportunities that may not fit what you think you were going to be offered or was going to be, because you just don't know the doors that will open up or the experiences that you'll have or what you'll be exposed to, because you don't know what you don't know. So
right.
if you're so rigid in, I only want to make this amount of money, I only want to have this title, I only want to do this type of work, you might miss out on something life changing.
I
So
agree.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's good advice for everyone in all stages.
It's true. It's true. Even though when you get older, a bit more. You're a bit more.
Yeah.
You know what you
Yeah,
want,
you're like,
but
no,
but yeah, you've been
not
around the
doing
block. You
that.
kind of you don't want somebody getting over on you. But I definitely think when you're first starting out, you just say yes and like try it out. And
Yeah,
if it doesn't work, you can quit after 6 months or a year. But
right.
you just never know where it'll take you.
I just like, what do you have to lose? Right? Like,
Exactly.
if it doesn't work out, then you learn something. You know what
Hmm.
you don't want to do. There's never failure, but I love that. Like, always say yes.
Hmm. Hmm. And then I think the flip side of that for people in our position is, and I've said this numerous times, in the world that we live in now with remote work, I think it is, while it's great for seasoned professionals in a lot of ways, I think it's very difficult for young people first starting out. I don't believe that they should be in a 100% remote environment, and there has to be ways, and we have to do it in our own organization, be better at it with getting that FaceTime and working in person with those
Hmm.
fresh out of college young professionals, because you you learn differently. And like you said, the gyms, they took the time to teach, and I just think
Yeah.
that experience of teaching and learning happens differently in person versus remote.
Totally agree. I mean, I see that right now with my kids doing an internship and it's remote. And
Mm.
so I just know he's learning a lot, but I know how much more he could be learning if there was an in-person space. I mean, nobody wants to drive to an office every
Mm.
single day, and nobody, we got used to not having this commute, but there's definitely so much to be learned from being around other people. And so, like, what are some of your ideas about how to create that environment for remote work?
Oh, that's a good question. I just really feel like that physical environment, having dedicated time where a younger professional, first, second, third year professional, can work in an office with their supervisor or the senior manager, or work with other team members, even if it's 1 or 2 days a week. I think what's great about experiential is at some point we're all going to be on site with each other. So it's
Mhm.
not completely 100% remote. But I do think that you have to be able to like sit in a room with each other once a week, twice a week, to huddle, to sit down and teach, look somebody in the eye, be able to brainstorm and spitball ideas, and you're in the middle of
Mhm.
something and just be able to yell across the room, hey, what do you think about this? Like I think you
Yeah.
have to make time to do that, and I think it's just as simple as that, like just have a physical space to get together, and work, at least once a week. There's also the social social etiquette, the social
Yeah.
nuances of, like, building relationships with people, and and learn and communicating with people, and
Right.
understanding, gaining that emotional intelligence with people that you can't always develop that in a strong way over the computer. Like, you
Right.
really get to understand people and learn about people's limitations, and when you're with them in person.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, things are just so much faster when you can lean over and ask a question and not have to wait for them to text you back or ping you, and just being around like other teams and kind of eavesdropping on what are the other teams working on, which you don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you're not invited to a call. So I don't know how 100% remote work works that way unless, like you said, the teams are very intentional.
Yeah.
And as an organization, they understand, like, yeah, it's going to cost money to bring these people in town for a period of time. And yeah, they're just working on a project, but it's important.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it comes from the top down, but also just everything has to be so intentional.
Yes.
And if you don't have the opportunity or budget to pull your team together, then what else can you do? Right. So
Right.
like I've been encouraging my son, like, have coffee chats. I mean, that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
I have a very large network and I'm very intentional about making sure I stay connected. And it's not just when I need something, but it's because I want to know what you're working on. I want to
Mm-hmm.
know how your life is. I want to know what's
Mm-hmm.
happening. And I know that there's so many good ideas out there that if I don't get out of my little box, I'm not going to know
Mm-hmm.
what they are. And so I love chatting with other people in our industry, in different industries, different types of jobs. It's fascinating and it's fun to me. And I always, when I'm working like a regular sort of corporate job, I always would save my Fridays to try to not have corporate focused meetings, but
Mm-hmm.
always
Mm-hmm.
have at least like one or two sort of networking calls during on a Friday, just because it was really important for me to stay in touch with people that are outside of, the corporate walls.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And that, to your point, you have to be intentional about it. Like, all those things, there's nothing wrong with being intentional about it. It might feel inauthentic, but that but you have to carve out the time to do those things, because it's very easy to get caught up in all the things that need to be done for the job and the
Things.
deadlines and all of that, and you can
Yeah,
find yourself, after a period of time, just being so isolated and tunnel vision in this little
right.
world of the brand that you work in. But yeah, you have to carve out that time to connect with other people and get inspired. Speaking of back in your day, you spent 14, 15 years working on the Visa brand and just creating some iconic moments. What was your process for designing an experience that resonates on a global scale?
Yeah, so I did spend a lot of time at Visa on everything from comms team to go to market for a brand new product, um, to an innovation comms or innovation marketing team, and eventually sponsorship and experiential. And for me, the process was always about understanding how does Visa make money
Mm,
and what are our products. So at the end of the day, it really is a B2B company. I worked on everything from B2B, so trade shows again. I worked on trade shows while I was at Visa. I worked on a lot of sort of media, talking earlier about South by Southwest. We did a pop-up there that was for partners to bring in some guests, but also for our clients to come in and have conversations and learn about some new innovative technologies. And so it was always about understanding the product and how to bring that to life, how to talk about all the innovation that Visa does as a business. And it's in the news right now talking about stable coins. And so if you think about Visa, it's a network and it's really hard to kind of make that cool and fun and bring it to life in a consumer sort of way. And so we really had to work hard about like how do we do something cool that's not just cool but also ties back to
mm,
the brand promise, product if at all possible, and then depending on who the audience is, right, because they're very different. A consumer audience is going to be very different from somebody at the bank who just needs to really understand like why should I spend my money on this product and what's it going to do for my consumer. And so it's really about a lot of strategy. It's really understanding who we are as a company, and then balancing that out with what is going to be memorable and what is a way to have our audience engage with the experience and walk away either wanting more or knowing more or understanding why we keep your transactions safe and secure and fast and seamless. So that's a very broad way of answering your question.
having worked in all those different roles and different departments, do you think that really helped when it came to creating experiences, being able to create these environments that answered and touched on all of those points that you mentioned and satisfied all those different stakeholders in one environment?
From a B2B perspective, I managed a showcase at our payments forum every year. And the idea there really is invite our clients to come, basically like a mini Dreamforce, right? Like it's the time for Visa to do product launches, education, get everybody in the same room, talk about what are we doing in marketing, what are we doing in all these different areas. And for the clients to come and meet with the sales team, understand how the products can be integrated into what it is that they're doing, meet and talk with each other. And so we built a showcase every year and working very closely with the product team as far as what products are important, um, and how do we build a story. And so it really was understanding the goals of of the product team and integrating how do you make that cool, which is sometimes hard.
Mm,
So, for example, one year we built out, when you talk about Visa's network, we built out a dark little studio and we brought in fog machines and we had you wear 3D glasses and we filmed a story about VisaNet, but we made it in a way that was like kind of coming at you literally through these 3D glasses. So it's all around
mm,
storytelling, right? Like how do we tell the story about how we're making your data secure? We did the same thing in a projection mapped room where you could like physically be inside of this network because all around you are these beautiful immersive designs. And so through storytelling, again, we're talking about the Visa network. VisaNet, but showing just these beautiful immersive environments where you can feel it while you hear it, and see it. Telling stories in those ways using innovation and technology to help supplement or complement what you're saying, I think is really important. We did a lot of augmented reality, a lot of VR, and it's surprising how many people hadn't really done VR. Because
Mm,
when you're in this business, you're like, oh, everybody does it. Nobody wants to wait in line to do it, but they actually will if you are providing something that's interesting, and worth waiting in the line for. We integrated actual, like, how do we tell this story of certain new ways to pay? Pre-COVID, nobody really understood how to like tap to pay.
mm.
Banks weren't issuing cards with the chips. The merchants didn't really want to upgrade their hardware. Consumers were like, what do you mean? This is my card. I'm just gonna do this. And so we would integrate, like, how do you tap to pay? How do you get a digital card in your phone by just filling out a few things, right? So telling those stories in a way that's interesting. So here's what you do. You know, put in a little bit of information, you get a prepaid card in your phone wallet, you walk over to this little vendor booth, you can buy a cool, I don't know, piece of swag or merchandise just by tapping to pay. So just very like little seamless experience where they understood the product, but we made it a little bit more fun for them. And then our sales team was able, and accounts team were able to talk to them about what it took to get that done, and why your customers would want to do that, which eventually they did. So on the B2B side, it really was creating these moments where there was something fun, because even though it's B2B, it doesn't mean it has to be boring. I was not part of the project anymore, but somebody else was. So we brought in our F1 car because F1's cool and Visa sponsors two cars. And so people got to like see an actual F1 car, take pictures, do an augmented reality with some of the drivers, and get their photos taken. So, always using our brand assets to bring to life, some of the ways that Visa is, marketing,
Mm.
but also on the sides, like what does it mean on the product side? How are you bringing this to life? So that's on like the B2B side, something that we do every year.
What was the organization's view of leveraging technology? Was it an easy sell when you had these ideas of, let's do VR, let's do projection mapping? Was that, and because
Mhm.
those things cost, they're not
Right.
cheap. So
Yeah.
was that an easy sell because there was a culture in Visa around technology and innovation, or was it really about you had to really like make the case and educate leadership on why you want to tell the story in this manner?
It's some of both. You can't have an innovation showcase and not have anything that's innovation inside of it. And being that Visa's from the Bay Area, and it, prides itself as being a technology company, for you then to not use cool technology to tell your story, doesn't make a lot of sense. So, Visa is an innovative company, but yes, that stuff is expensive, and we didn't get to do everything we wanted to do. Use technology to help amplify your story. Here is why it might look better. And sometimes, because Visa is not a consumer goods product, or we're not selling shoes or apparel, you've got to be a little bit more creative to get those customers engaged in your story, because who wants to hear about data flying around or like something in the cloud? Like, it's not as exciting as like a new, I don't know, collab on your shoe drop, right? Like, I'd much rather go to that one. So, so I think there was often an understanding of like, yeah, that's cool. That's going to draw people to our space, right? Like, we had at one point these screens that, like, from across the room, you're like, what's happening over there, and you would come see. So the other thing that was important was scalability, right? Like you
Mm,
never want to invest in something for a one-off if you don't have to. And
mm,
so how can we do this again, either at a different region's event or use the film that we used or take the learnings. How can we pull something into the Visa Innovation Center where we have guests come every day? There was always for me, like, how do you reuse it? How do you
mm,
do it big and then make it small so that it can travel? And sometimes that's easier said than done. But we did try to reuse the the assets that we could. Some of the VR stories we told, we did once in, digital, and then we turned it into like a VR story, had some interactions. There's a lot of figuring out how to scale it up or how to scale it down, how to make it travel, how to get the best bang for your buck, because you are spending a lot of money and time. And so if you think of that in the beginning so that you're building it so that you can take it and travel with it instead of at the end being like, now what do we do with it? How do we make it so that we can travel with it? Go on a road show with this story. You have to start thinking about that at the beginning. And you
mm,
have to get the other teams on board. So if you're working with different product teams or different regions, like get them on board early so that they know to set aside some budget for that experience to be built and changed a little bit so that they can use it. And that also helps selling things when you know it's not just a one time only thing.
And how did you go about being educated and knowledgeable about different types of technologies? Is it something that you had a personal passion about, and you had a process for staying up on innovation, or were you relying on agency partners to do that?
Yeah, I would educate myself. Because it's important to me to know sort of like what is out there and how can I use these tools to benefit clients and customers. Um, of course, like we work with agencies, and agencies bring us ideas. The ones that I loved are the ones who are pushing boundaries and can see like how to do things differently. And so
Mm,
when we come together, me doing my part in being curious about what's out there,
mm,
going to the things. I went to like a metaverse class when that was a thing. Just because I want to know. I follow people to see what they're talking about, like kind of the futurists. When I bring in what I know, and then I can balance it with what they know, and
mm,
then figure out how to make it so that we can bring this to life for a certain event or product. Like I think that's where the magic is, but I never want to rely 100% on the agency, but I also think like if we're paying you all this money, then I want something that I don't know about, right?
yeah.
Like give me something new. What else is out there? What are people doing? Because it's very easy for an agency to start kind of thinking like the brand, and then it's like, well,
Mm,
then, you know, don't put those um we can't do it because
mm,
on yourselves, like that's our job and our
mm,
legal job and our like, oh, we don't have the money finance job, but you should be bringing us like the biggest and best ideas out there and be unhindered by any of what you know to be true about how we normally do business. I think it's a challenge when you work with an agency too long because they know all the, yeah, you
all
probably
the
can't do
rules.
that because of, yeah, all the rules. But like you to break those rules and help me break them, right? So don't just give me the safe things.
Oh, I'd love to have you as a client, Kim.
Yeah.
Because sometimes my team, they think I'm crazy because I will always like shoot for the moon, and it's just like, okay, if they can't do it, that's fine. We can pare it back from there, but let's start
Yeah.
out there. Let's not start in
I love
here. So
it.
yeah, that's
I
great to hear
know.
that there are people like you out there
There.
that appreciate the big ideas. And I think a lot of agencies could be scared that it's like and everybody's different. So there are
Mm,
the brand stewards out there that they only want you to give them something that they can afford because they don't have the bandwidth to have those arguments and fights. But I think a lot of agencies can get into a bit of a rut where they don't want to push the boundaries and the limits because they know the answer is going to be no, or they're afraid that the client will be upset with them for coming up with something that might be unrealistic. But I just think we
mhm.
gotta stretch our imaginations, and because you
Yeah.
never know where it'll take you.
And if you don't, like everything starts to look the same. I've done a few projects for an agency, and there's that balance, right? Like you got to still follow the brief. You still need to give them what
Mhm.
they asked for. But why not go a little beyond to give them what they didn't ask for? Because then that shows you how you can think differently. It sets you apart. And if they love it, awesome. If they don't, I mean, it wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, options. Got to give them options.
Options.
I had, before you talk about consumer, I did have another question around the technology piece, and it's a bit of a like a granular question, but did you find that when you were implementing some of these ideas and leveraging some of these technologies, were you renting the items because you talked about needing to like reuse them? Were you making
Mm.
big purchasing investments to like own some part of the technology? Like how did that work in a execution?
Mostly rented, especially like the big things. But from some of the small, more scalable things, like if we knew we were going to do this VR thing 5 times and we just purchased the goggles.
Mhm.
If we knew we were going to use this touch screen, often more than 2 times, we would purchase it. But then you have to balance that out with build and burn is
Mm,
terrible for the environment and it's
mm,
expensive and it's like all this money and then you don't, and then you just burn it. But it's also hard to pay for storage, pay for
mhm,
shipping, making sure that things aren't broken. So you invest in something and you ship it to storage and you're paying for storage and you ship it to the next show and it's cracked and broken. And it's like,
mm.
well, that's kind of the cost is the same. So you really just everything's different.
Yep,
And
each time.
technology changes so fast. One, it changes so fast, but also sometimes depending on how long the activation is for, it becomes cheaper to buy
Mm,
instead of rent. We did
mm,
these augmented reality vending machines with a company. It was for the Tokyo Olympics, and we also did an activation for the Super Bowl. So you've seen something similar at different football stadiums, but the idea was, again, to kind of get people used to the tapping and paying. It basically looked like a vending machine, and we would encourage people to tap to activate, and of course, we'd give them a card to use. But then they could select through 4 different athletes, right? Like, did they want a photo with George Kittle or Saquon Barkley? They would go through and they would select their athlete and then kind of take a few steps back, and the athlete would kind of come in and do a little dance and then kind of pose with them. And so what they got out of that was a video and a photo, printed, and then like a digital piece. And we staged a few sort of fan moments. So Lamar Jackson happened to be the rookie of the year that year. We also had some of the athletes come out while fans were doing the experience. And so capturing that moment of them choosing Lamar, choosing Christian, and then he comes out from the background and they actually get to meet the athlete in real life was like super cool. And fans did stand in line for a good 45 minutes just to do that
mm,
activation. So there's a little bit of a product moment. It was a big brand moment. Visa, of course, sponsors the NFL, and Super Bowl is one of our big activations.
mm.
So it was super fun. That technology though, we purchased the hardware
Okay.
because to rent it for the week of Super Bowl and then to rent it for 8 weeks during the Olympics
Mm,
was going to be so expensive that it cost
mm.
us less to buy
To just
them
buy it.
than it did to rent them. However, we then did have to ship them around, and then pandemic hit. We ended up not really being able to to do everything we wanted to do. So we had some shipped to the States. So we had one shipped to Miami, we had one shipped to New York. We actually did an activation with Olympic athletes that are all part of Team Visa, plus the Olympic mascots. And we did that in New York during the Olympics and Paralympics in
Mm.
21. And we did that at Hudson Yards. We had a space there. And so we had
Oh,
fans come and they got a picture with Simone Biles or some of the cute little mascots. Because we had purchased those, we could use them, a year later.
right.
We pulled one out. We did something at Orlando. I believe it was a Team USA activation, and then we shipped that machine to the Miami office so that the employees and any people that were coming through their innovation center could also have that experience. And so it was reusable, which made it
Hmm.
also worth purchasing, but it was very expensive, and coordinating logistics to pack it up and ship it and then kind of like redo the programming was tough. It's a balance. You have so much to consider in that equation. Yeah, it's not an easy answer.
I think just that's some great insight for people to have, that it is something to consider. Sometimes it is cheaper to buy it. And if you can think about, strategically long term, all of the great uses for it, that way you can make a case.
Mhm.
It reminds me of I was at South by Southwest earlier this year, and we got to do the Rivian experience. And the team there were saying how they had an Airstream that they had bought, pre-COVID years ago for a specific activation. And then I guess maybe during the COVID years, it was basically sitting in storage. And they recently kind of figured out a way now to how to repurpose it. And they're now using it for to promote their Dolby partnership. But they, fitted it out now in a different way. But I just thought that was such a great use of an existing asset, giving it new life,
Mhm.
being able to leverage that investment. So, people can think about what are the things that we have in storage that we purchased
Right.
a while ago, and how can we bring this thing to life again? And it's a great way
Yeah.
to stretch your budget because budgets are so tight. So
Yeah.
those are great
And also
ideas.
investing in the good thing, right? Like it's
Hmm.
an Airstream,
Hmm.
timeless, is never going to go out of style. You can always use it. But what if they had bought some, I don't know, other random, whatever, camper
Right.
thing? Like
Yeah.
maybe it wouldn't have been as cool.
Right. Right.
So,
Right. Exactly.
so like, yeah, invest wisely, just
Mm.
like our parents would probably say. Rivian's interesting to me because when they came on the market, they were this funny
Mm.
looking truck and
Mm.
electric, and it's like, oh, they're kind of cute, but they're kind of weird looking. And I was in Laguna, and they have a Rivian space, and it's at
Mm.
this old theater, and they've got a little coffee shop, they've got a cute little merch shop, and you walk in, and they've got some Rivian automobiles there stationed. But this whole space is kind of a WeWork space, so you can go
Mm.
in and you can sit at a desk. They show surf movies there because it still is a theater. And
Mm.
so they've built this environment that really promotes the lifestyle of someone who might drive a Rivian. So it's right across
Mm.
from the beach. They've got these fun little kind of beachy colors. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, those are really cool cars. Like I could drive one of those. And because I'm a sucker for good experiences, I'm
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, I love Rivian. So I think they've really done it well, but it's tapping into those emotions, building an environment and promoting your product, but also just kind of what is the lifestyle? What is the bigger
Mm.
strategy and story about who your audience is, and really knowing and understanding them and bringing to life like, yeah, let's create just a cool space for people to hang out. It's kind of in your face, but it's not really in your face. Like no,
Yeah.
there were no salespeople who were like, hey, you want to test drive this car? We've got these deals going on. It was just come in and hang out, and if you want to check out the car, it's over there. But I love their space, and it really changed my mind about how I felt about the brand.
Oh, that's great. And that's the power of experiential. And I think they do a great job with bringing their brand to life and, being such a young brand. It's not like they're a
Mhm.
legacy brand at all, but they really have a great, fresh perspective on how to bring it to life and how to connect with
Mhm.
existing and potential consumers. Shout out to the Rivian team.
Yes. Whoop, whoop.
So, how did the idea for having Post Malone take over the Louvre come about?
We sponsor the Olympics and we were thinking about the Paris 24 Olympics and sponsorship team, experiential team, the brand team, the social team, everybody's working on it and coming up with their own ideas. And all of a sudden we had a bunch of silos. And so like, how do you tie it all together? How do you come up with like this amazing sort of kickoff to the Summer Olympics? We worked with a bunch of different agencies and we came up with this idea. You imagine walking past the iconic pyramid at the Louvre, right? Like that beautiful outdoor environment. And you walk past it and you smell the freshly dropped rain, or you even feel the current raindrops coming down on you as you walk through the courtyard, and you can kind of taste and feel this excitement, and you can hear this local DJ
Mm,
in the courtyard, and you can kind of start to feel the beats, and you just kind of want to dance, and you're there with all your friends in this kind of large but intimate environment with 4,000 of your Parisian friends that got in for free, and you're watching your local DJ, and then you get to see your possibly favorite Latin urban artist. And then you get to see an Afrobeats artist, and then you get to see Post Malone on stage for free with the Louvre in the background. And it's all kind of brought to you by Visa. That's what we built out. And the reason we did it was because we know that music is culture, right? Like
mhm,
music moves people.
mhm,
And music is where this younger audience is that we were trying to tap into. In addition to the live concert, we also know that most of the world is on social. So we streamed it live on
mhm,
to Roblox, where kids are for gaming. We had a bunch of creators and influencers there on site who were creating content to then amplify the story and the message beyond just this one location in
mhm,
Paris. And so it was this really amazing night, music, and it was so much fun. If you think about it, like we all know the plastic card and what it does, and uh, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they don't know that's it's a digital card. They use Apple Pay, they use their phone to pay for everything. And so until you have brand relevance, you can't have like brand love, brand
mm,
usage,
mm,
product usage. And so
mm,
we had a CMO come in. He understood that we needed to change how we talk to our audiences by being social first, by
mm,
being where they are. So it's being culturally relevant where they hang out,
mm,
and they hang out in the gaming world, in music, fashion. Now you're seeing a lot more with food. It was a task for us to focus on our branding. And because the Olympics were coming up, we had thought about like, how do we show up at the Olympics? How do we show up on the biggest stage ever? How do we also tell us a global story, right? This is in
mhm,
Paris. So
mhm,
how do we work with our counterparts in France to make sure that the story resonates with their audience, and that the music is global because we are telling the story to everyone in the Olympics? How do we show up differently? How do we create that brand love for people who don't really know our brand?
mhm,
They know how to buy things, they know how to use Apple Pay and PayPal, but do they really like find any relevance in the Visa brand? And so, how
mm,
can we do that in a different way that is bringing them along our journey of like making it easy to pay using Visa, but also we can have like these amazing kind of experiences that are once in a lifetime, never been done before, probably will never be done ever
Mm.
again in a space like the Louvre. And it was before Post Malone went full on country. And so he had, just all his greatest hits. And I've always been a huge fan of his. I've seen him a couple
Mm.
times. Um, but yeah, it was just, it helped build relevance. It helped activate, it helped give us a voice online because in social, like nobody really just wants to go to Visa to hear about a credit card, right? But
Right.
if Visa is part of the culture, if they're part of an F1 activation, or if they're part of a cool music concert, does that then mean something to them? And will it help build brand love? And then, therefore, will people choose to upload their Visa card into their Uber app or use it when they're doing their Apple Pay?
Was that a very difficult venue to work in?
I think that they were really, really great to work with, great people, but of course there's a gazillion restrictions, right? Like no alcohol, no food, those kinds of
Mm.
restrictions. Um,
Mm.
weight was a very important issue. The number of people that we invited in and could have in for this concert was limited, right?
Mm.
Because if you know the Louvre, you know that right underneath the Cour there's art, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't want to destroy the art. You don't want to destroy the mummies. So
Mm.
we built a stage over the fountain to house like the sound system and some of the VIP um, guests. But we couldn't have more than, 150 people on this platform because of the weight bearing. And
Mm.
so physically it was a challenge, but the agency figured it all out. We worked with a lot of different kind of governing bodies. The sound system, we use a company called L Acoustics, and they make amazing sound systems, hardware and software, and they're able to kind of target so that the sound isn't just broad and loud, but it can
Mm.
be, long and focused. It can
Targeted.
be
Mm-hmm.
narrow, targeted. I mean, they have the ability, I've been in their studio, to kind of, depending on where you're standing, you can hear certain sounds coming from the stage that you can't hear in other places. So if you've ever been in a venue where they're using L acoustics, you can definitely tell, sound, feel the difference.
How do you spell it? How do you spell the name of the company?
It's the letter L
Okay.
and then I think a dash and then the word acoustics.
Okay. Because you hear about, with certain venues or at certain events, you can't go over a certain decibel level sometimes with,
Exactly.
so, oh, that's a technology that I didn't know existed. So let's put that
Yeah.
one down in our vendor list.
Yeah.
Check them out.
I'm happy to connect you with people over there. We had a couple different tests, and we had these women kind of walking around the Louvre, making sure things weren't shaking too much and kind of
Mm.
testing like the decibels. And so there was a lot of nervousness around that. It's also a public space. And so, like, how do you secure it? How do you keep
Mm.
people from just coming in? So we had Visa security, we had a security team that we hired. We also had the Paris prefecture kind of walking the grounds. We had Live Nation securities. We basically had four security teams running around, making sure that everyone's safe, everyone knows how to flow in, flow out, traffic is moving. How do you create the VIP entries if needed? And I didn't do all of this myself. Like, right, my team
Mm.
did, um, but would have multiple meetings, and the agency was there in Paris, I think every other week, meeting with the team from the Louvre and the prefecture, and just all the different teams, building those relationships so that there was trust built in. Lots of rules and regulations and things to be careful about. But the teams were all lovely, and just really wanted to represent this amazing space in a different way, right? Like if you think about how many tourists come through the Louvre, it's a little bit of a PR moment for them too, to think like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they've got these amazing fashion shows and then they've got this beautiful art, but what else can they do to attract people to come hang out in this gorgeous space?
It's so funny. We're talking about Paris. I'm starting to feel like Paris, even more so at the moment, is having a moment. We're gonna play a little game at the end about who, where, and what's having a moment. But I feel like Paris is just making moments, especially in the music space. And I don't know what it is about the
Mm,
culture of Paris. Like earlier this year, I went and I saw Usher in Paris, and then he had a special on BET Plus with from
mm,
his concerts in Paris. And then I know Beyonce is in Paris right now, and the whole internet has been in an uproar because she brought out Miley Cyrus and Jay-Z in Paris and not in the US. And
right.
then thinking about your event even though it was during the Olympics, it's still pretty iconic to do something at the Louvre in Paris. So I think Paris, we need to keep Paris in mind a bit more when we're thinking
I
about
know.
experiences. That should be
I
our
think so.
inspiration.
Yeah. Well, if you think about, I mean, it's this cultural hotbed, right? There is
Mm,
music, a big music scene,
and
fashion, of
fashion,
course, but
food.
like sports, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
food. It's like it's all the things, and it's it's magical.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It
Um,
is. It is. Yeah. I have a new look and feel or perspective on Paris because this when I went this year it was the first time I had been there and I say at least 13 years because the last time I was there my son wasn't even born and he's 13 now. So I
yeah,
hadn't been in a very long time and yeah, I just kind of feel like, oh, I might need to take some more trips to Paris. I need to go back more
so,
often
yeah,
now.
yeah. Compared to here, it's not super expensive,
Right,
right? Like
right.
you
Yeah,
can
it's an
have
easy
really
trip.
good food, and yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, agreed. You had mentioned that the about how you're using the experience to keep Visa top of mind and how you're able to convert this demographic and encourage them to motivate them to use Visa more and that was part of the reason of doing these events. Are there any results that you can share that came out of either the Olympic sponsorship or specifically from the Louvre event that you felt like really highlighted or validated the strategy to do this type of activation or to be there and engage your audience in this way.
Um, yeah, so for this particular the concert, we did do surveys for people who attended. We had their email addresses because the way that they entered was through a lottery. So first they signed up to be in the lottery, and then so we had a huge database where they did share their email addresses, and then from there those who got invited, we had follow-up surveys with. So there were surveys for who entered the lottery but didn't win a ticket,
Mm-hmm.
and then those who did. And so some of the research, I'm trying to remember, I don't have it off the top of my head. I know that brand relevancy was lifted like over 20%. And this also was in combination with the social led platforms, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
had creators out there talking about it. So I do remember a 22% lift in brand relevancy, and especially among Gen Z, which was our audience. So that was significant. All of the things that we sponsor, Visa sponsors, right? Like these big sponsorship deals, but they're so multifaceted. It's that age old
Yeah.
question, right? Like,
Yeah.
is the experience worth it? And of course, there's brand surveys or surveys that you can do to try to measure, like, what did you think about the brand before? What did you think about
Mm-hmm.
the brand after?
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the brand? Do you
Mm-hmm.
use the brand? And those are important. What are the other ways that experiential marketers are using to find these metrics. And it is hard, right? Like at a B2B event, it's much easier because
Hmm.
there's a sales funnel, there's attribution, there's ways to keep track, there's all the sales leads and lead gen following up, and then you can kind of track like, oh, they were at this and this trade show, they had these dinners and we had these meetings, and all of these attribute to the success of a sale. Whereas you do something experiential, did the 4,000 Parisians go use their Visa card, that night after the show or the next day? I don't know. Like,
Hmm.
probably, I hope
Hmm.
so, but like we don't have that data to say
Yeah.
like, yeah, they all use it this many more times than they had in the past. And with any activation, it's the question that comes up all the
Yeah.
time. How do you measure? I think the industry is ready for something more, but it's hard. Maybe there's a heat map so you can see where people are gathered and how much time they're spending, and how you need to possibly like divert them so there's better flow, right? So that's a data point. There's dwell time. There's how many demos did you do, or how many people took photos in front of this wall, or these activations, these installations. So that data comes through, but I think you have to set up your experience with like actual goals
Hmm.
that are meaningful and that you can track, and you should track everything, but everyone has to come in agreement before
Right.
that, like, what are we trying to do? How
Yeah.
are we going to measure it? You just have to be honest. And like people just want to do their thing. And so they were like, oh, yeah, yeah, we can measure that. But it's like, if you can't really measure it, then just be honest up front.
Right. Right.
And like, yeah, because then there's no
That's.
disappointment at the end of the day. I was just going to say, I also think that you need to be honest when things fail.
Mm.
Um, it's kind of back to one of our back to the beginning, right? Like, so you tried it and it failed. Like, it's a learning tool, right? Like, and you have to, if you don't admit what would have been better, then you
Mm.
can't get better.
Like we say over here, Conversate Collective, keep it a buck, keep it 100. So if it
Yeah, yeah,
fails, just like it failed,
it
we'll
failed.
do better next time. This is how we can do
I
differently. Be
know.
honest about it. Yeah, that's a good point. I do think though, with the way that Google and Apple can and Amazon and everybody's listening to us and tracking different things, there has to be a way through our phones that at some point brands can tap into, okay, you were here in this area at this experience, and what did you go do after that related to our brand?
Mhm.
There's got to be a
Yeah,
way, so somebody will figure it out.
yeah. Or they probably are, but they're never gonna tell us.
Or they're not sharing it yet, or they haven't
Yeah,
figured out a way to sell it to us to make money
true.
off of it. That's all it is.
That's true. I know. Where's Live Nation when you need them?
Right. Was there anything interesting that you learned from the Roblox experience?
They had never streamed a concert before, and there was a lot of audience gating that had to be done for the show
Mm,
to come through. So there were definitely some technology challenges. So test, 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 continually testing. If you've got an artist and they're going to be in Roblox or Fortnite, like get them on board, get them to want to participate, because what it does
mm,
is good for their brand, right? Like
mm-hmm,
if you have the emotes, like the little dances that Post Malone does, or have them sort of be all on board with like, yeah, this audience is good for me. Um, could Ira Star, who was one of our artists, like create an outfit for Roblox to give away or sell
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
on site? Like
The
all of
merch.
those things. The merch is it's the merch, right? Like, yeah, people care about what they're wearing on their avatars more than they
Mm-hmm,
do in real life. And so
mm-hmm.
how do we work with the artists to care more and participate and collab with us on things that could live in the digital world? The teams that we worked with on the digital side were really great and they really wanted that. And there were a lot of, it didn't happen. And
Mm,
I think that maybe if we had had more time,
right.
or a little bit more understanding, because it was a first for us to do this. It
Mm-hmm.
was a first
Hmm.
for a lot of people. And so doesn't mean it was wrong or bad. It just means, again, evaluating what could we have done better. And I think getting buy-in from the artist because they're so precious with their brand.
Right.
Um, why is it important for them to be in Roblox? Like, here's the data behind this audience and how Roblox is growing. And it's not just your kids play site anymore. And would you consider like doing this because it's just a different way to promote yourself in this space that, by the way, reaches this audience and is going to have this kind of spending power, if not now, in a few years. And so, I
Right.
mean, that's why Visa's in there. So how do you partner with the partners better? So I think that was a good learning.
How long did it take? How long was the planning for the Louvre activation?
All in all, we started in like I'd say October, November with the idea, and the concert
Mm,
was at the end of May.
okay.
Um, but it wasn't, full steam ahead. It was a lot of like move forward, stop,
Stop.
move forward, pivot, move sideways, move backwards. It wasn't easy, it wasn't smooth, it wasn't
Straight
straightforward. It
line.
was a
Yeah.
lot of pivots.
Well, I am just completely fascinated, and congratulations for being able to pull something like that off. Out of all of the cities that you have done events in, what's been your favorite city to produce an event in?
I got to go to Russia
Oh
for
wow.
FIFA, and I'm so grateful that we had that opportunity to go then because you
Mm.
can't go
Right.
now.
Right.
Um, and so, yeah, we did a couple activations for hospitality guests, as part of the hospitality team's big production. Like they take over
Mm,
hotels for clients and consumers and just did these amazing, beautiful takeovers and build outs, like really incredible work. And then we also had some consumer focused biometrics technology to kind of talk about the future of payments, which at the time was all about biometrics. And so we had to fake it, but you really could register the veins in your palm and
oh
then you could
wow.
pay with them. So I think Amazon is doing this
Yeah, Amazon
somewhere.
does that now, and Whole
Um,
Foods.
yeah, yeah. So it was before that. This was like, I don't remember, 2018, 2019. We built these kind of spaces at these malls in Moscow. Um, and it was just pretty nutty. So the technology again was really cool. It told the story about how you can use biometrics, how it is very safe, like safer than your face tracking. And then it was basically again a vending machine where you got cool FIFA swag for participating. But yeah, the malls were a little crazy. I mean, it's very different there, but a very, very beautiful city. Like the architecture is amazing. The food was incredible. They have all these like rooftop restaurants. So I'm so grateful and feel very fortunate that I could
Mm,
have been there and walk around Red Square and just see the beauty that's there. And also got to go to St. Petersburg. Just really incredible. So more so from the opportunity that was afforded me
mm,
because we sponsor FIFA World Cup and Women's World Cup, and then getting to go to the matches was cool too. But yeah, activating in other countries is always very interesting, understanding how they work, what works, what doesn't work. It's always interesting. Every country's different, every state's different, really. Like
right.
you just really have to know your audience and just be willing and flexible to move fast, to pivot, and just like at the end of the day, things work out. And so, like, to get super uptight or upset, you just really have to have kind of the personality of like, going with the flow and knowing that, like, things are going to work out. They always do. You do your
Yeah.
best, and that's all that you can do. There's only so much that you can control.
Right.
And you do what you can, and then you measure.
Right. You measure, right?
You
Get those
measure. Look at the
results. Get those
results.
results.
Yeah.
Well, this has been such an enlightening conversation. I've learned so much, and I'm sure our audience has too. And you have
So,
such great experiences and stories. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. And the fact that
of course.
here in the States, we've got a World Cup coming, we've got another Olympics coming back, and of course, there's always the Super Bowl. I can imagine your phone is going to be ringing off the hook because I don't know anyone that has done as much as you have on such a grand scale with these big events. So, thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for
I
sharing
mean,
that.
yeah, I'm one of like many, many, but I appreciate that. Thank you.
Before you go, we ask all of our guests, who is having a moment, what is having a moment, or where is having a moment?
I have two answers.
Okay.
One, I think Becca Bloom is having a moment. Do you know her on
No,
TikTok and
who is
Instagram?
Becca Bloom? Tell
Oh
us.
my gosh. She is this incredibly smart and slightly relatable, I guess you'd call her influencer creator on TikTok and Instagram. Um, she's part of Rich Talk, which is sort of like, I don't know, I just went down this rabbit hole and I found her. She's grown this audience like really, really quickly. And I think it's because she is unapologetic about who she is. She also feels very kind, not pretentious, and super wealthy. Her
Okay.
parents, she comes from wealth from her parents, but she also works and she's in finance. And you can just tell like she's very well read and she shares her thoughts. So while she does show like all her shopping sprees and unboxing from Prada or wherever, like speaking of Paris, like these private shopping events, she will also talk about like the five books she recommends and why. And she's just very articulate. She's very
Mm.
like soft spoken. And so like you kind of are drawn into her, just the sound of her voice. And like she's just super cute. She talks about her upcoming wedding. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a fan. It's people say like, and you read the comments and
Mm.
everybody's nice, which I think is
Mm.
rit's
Oh,
on Instagram
wow.
and TikTok. Like
Mm-hmm.
they're like, she does Rich right. And like she, it's as if like Rich is a negative in so many spaces and places, but
Right.
it's like they appreciate her for being like, yeah, I have money. Like I'm not gonna
Hide
yeah, she
it
just
or be
seems real.
ashamed of it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly. Just unapologetic and also super smart. And I just, I don't know, maybe it's a persona because you never know these days.
Right.
But
Right.
at least, you know, the character I follow is, I just love listening to her. And she lives in
She's
this
got a
world
little
that I will
ASMR.
never.
Right.
Yes, yeah, like her voice. And like she talks about how the chef prepared all these things for her dog, like her, and like just, it's crazy. Like that is never going to be my life, but I'm happy to watch it in like this weird way. People say like it's like your rich best friend FaceTiming you just because she's like very sweet also. So anyway,
Okay.
Becca
I'm gonna
Bloom
check
is
her
her
out.
name. I believe it might even be like Becca X Bloom. I'm not actually sure. But
Okay.
yeah, check her out. The other thing that I think is having a moment is it's all about community and kind of the health and wellness space. I feel
Mm.
like is having another moment where it's
Mm.
sort of this combination of like mental health and physical health being combined and building community. So I think post COVID, people getting tired of dating apps, people working remote, they just want to hang out with like people. The health and wellness industry is huge, right? Like $6 trillion
Mm-hmm.
business.
Mm-hmm.
And these kind of more social or community based clubs, whether like run clubs or Pilates on the beach. One of my friends runs Flow Pilates Club, where she'll have Pilates on the beach on a Saturday in Santa Monica and just creates this beautiful environment. But also, you get to take a class, so you're getting healthy and you're meeting
Mm-hmm.
people
Mm-hmm.
and just like-minded people. Classes, there's all these new sort of breath work and cold plunge and saunas
Mm-hmm.
where you do it in community. You know, there's like 20 of you instead of these
Mm-hmm.
individual spaces. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I'm joining this new skincare startup, and we're really focusing on community. Like, how do you tap into this community of people who find importance in rituals and taking care of themselves and taking care of their skin and their bodies, but also their mind.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and how do you come alongside and basically build with them?
Mm-hmm.
How do you listen to them in a different way? And how do you create products that are kind of for them and by them, right? So not using
Mm-hmm.
it as sort of like a channel to
Yeah.
go in and sell, but to like be part of these communities and hear their needs and help build new things that are going to help, with skincare. Like Reese Witherspoon just launched Sunny, like I think, a new media company so that these girls can kind of show up as their whole selves and that's enough, right? Like you don't need all the things. So I do think, even though community is another a little bit one of those buzzwords, I do think living life together and having these experiences that are more community based instead of individual are also kind of having a moment.
I love that. And, I think community is the fuel for a lot of connection at the moment in the
Mhm.
era that we're living in. And I don't think community is going to get old anytime soon. So wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Kim. Thanks for spending time with us
Thank
and
you,
sharing
Asia.
all of this. And we look forward to talking to you again soon. Kim, thanks so much for sharing not just the big moments, but the innovation behind them. Moment makers, I hope you're walking away with new inspiration to craft your own unforgettable experiences. Now, before you go, I would greatly appreciate it if you would rate, subscribe, review, and share the show with your fellow marketers, creators, and culture shapers. It helps more people discover us. You can follow us on social at Making the Moment Pod and online at makingthemomentpod.com for bonus content, show notes, and ways to connect. Until next time, don't be afraid to make your mark and make the moment.